It's Binjang 91.5. It's time for Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. And we're in Studio 2. Good morning, Matthew.
Hey, good morning, Tony. Great to be chatting to you again. Lots of technology to talk about, as always.
That's dead right. Now, here's an interesting one. I remember back in the day, I think going back to the Whitlam years, that's a long time ago.
Whitlam years, you're talking about ancient history now.
Well, we are, really. He was talking about moving to the technical age, paperless offices and all this sort of thing as something for the future. Mind you, that's a long way back then.
Indeed.
And of course, it's been talked about a lot since. So we've all gone to emails, and we haven't necessarily reduced the amount of paper we use, which it's it's biodegradable, reusable anyway. But the question is, if we send fewer emails, will that help us save the planet anyway?
There's some UK officials who believe that we're sending too many emails and believe that we're creating too many greenhouse gases from the emails that we're sending. So please stop the emails, they're saying. And it's a bit of a big stretch to say that we're destroying the planet with emails. It's actually an interesting question I've been asked before, Tony, whether IT in general is green. And when you start to consider the reduction in plane flights, the reduction in transport that you might need because we can now do Zoom or we can have remote access to things, then on one hand you think that it might be fairly green, the whole IT environment that we've created around the world. But on the flip side of that, we've got these huge server farms that are consuming a huge amount of electricity. And that's where the focus is coming for this: send one fewer email per day and help save the planet. But again, you start to think about how much difference that makes and whether or not that's actually going to make any difference at all, because all the equipment that we need to send that email, our computers, our Wi-Fi devices, our routers, the internet connections, they're all being used anyway. But there were some calculations done, and if everyone in the UK sent one less email per day, that would save about 16,000 tonnes of carbon a year, which sounds like a pretty big number, until you consider that the amount of carbon generated each year in the UK is 435.2 million tonnes. So basically, if we all sent one less email today, at best it might shave off 0.0037% of the amount of greenhouse gases we're creating. I suppose it's an interesting little thought experiment, but the number of times that people say, thanks, okay, sure thing, just a simple email like that, and I'm as guilty as anyone of that, Tony. I kind of find it polite. If someone sends me an email, it's some information I've been after, I'll normally respond with thanks, okay, great, whatever it might be. But maybe I'm wasting carbon emissions by actually sending back that email to say thank you. So it's an interesting discussion. I suppose the bottom line is, do what you think seems sensible, and there's probably other ways we can save greenhouse gases rather than sending one less email a day.
Yeah, it's not just emails. This is because the internet's used for lots of other things. Actually, I was looking at figures some time ago, and it was just astounding how much electricity, the percentage of electricity that is used by computers operating the internet. It's quite astounding.
And then you're spot on, but you've also got some of the big tech firms, the Googles, for example, of the world, that have got huge server farms. Apple are the same. They're already saying that they're carbon neutral. So they basically have all of their electricity that they use, it's not renewable electricity. They've got subsidies for environmental projects to offset the carbon. There's a whole bunch of debate around that, but they're declaring themselves carbon neutral. I know Apple recently made an announcement they're already carbon neutral, but they made an announcement that at some point in the near future, and they did actually name a date, they will not only be carbon neutral, but all the electricity they generate will be generated via renewable energy. So there's some you're right in terms of the amount of electricity used by some of these large tech companies, but they're putting some steps in place to address that.
Now, Matthew, I know just from looking at you that you're one of these people that sit on the toilet for a long period of time. Now, that can be a little bit dangerous, I have to warn you. So
thank you.
It could even require surgery if you're not careful.
It's a bit scary, and you're spot on. And your vision's spot on, Tony. I do sit on the toilet and play on my phone because it's, in my mind, I'm multitasking. I may well just be wasting time, but I learn it from my kids. Sometimes you'll be looking for your kids, you haven't seen them for 20 minutes, and next thing you know, they're in the toilet working away on well, I'm not sure if they're working on their phone, but they're on their phone. But last year, there's a Sydney gastroenterologist, and he was concerned after he did an operation on a 23-year-old woman who required an emergency hemorrhoid thrombectomy. And I don't actually know what that is, but basically it's as a result of having a huge hemorrhoid. And he started looking at a few other operations that had occurred over the last year and a half and found that there were other young people that he didn't expect to see in surgery for hemorrhoids, especially hemorrhoids this large. And then after some more investigation, he found that these people were spending 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half an hour on the toilet. And he went into some details that I won't worry about going into right now, but basically that's pretty bad for us and can cause hemorrhoids. And when they did some more surveys, they found that there are a number of people who spend a long period of time on the toilet. And as you can guess, most of these people are younger. Most of these people need to be able to sit on the toilet and be in touch every minute of the day. And I do remember one of my daughters complained to me one time about the fact that there was one toilet in our house that you couldn't quite get Wi-Fi in. So I ended up putting 4 Wi-Fi routers around our house to make sure that you got Wi-Fi in every single part of the house. But yeah, those Gen Z people, that's the people born between 95 and 2010, 96% of those people said they wouldn't go to the bathroom without their phone. So this may well be a looming health problem for those people as they get a little bit older, not into their 60s and 70s where these doctors might expect to see these huge hemorrhoid problems, but in their late 20s and early 30s.
A health problem in more ways than one, if you ask me.
Well,
and,
washing your hands and washing your phone as well, you're right.
Well, for those people taking their phones into the toilet, I hope you floor and crack your glass screen.
Oh, that's very Schadenfreude of you, Tony.
Dear. Now, on a more pleasant subject, well, I don't know if it's pleasant, but anyway, why are some Australian states trying to place additional taxes on electric vehicles? We know why. It's going to be a tax deficit problem. And I just was reading at just the other day that New South Wales government, along with the South Australian government and the Victorian government, doing this, or the South Australian government have already done it actually, in taxes for electric vehicles. And
I'm actually not sure that I can answer your first question, Tony. You said why they're doing it. And I'm not sure if I know why. I know you've said that it's to generate some revenue, but it's not really to generate some revenue. 0.6% of all new cars sold in Australia last year were electric. So I don't think taxing electric vehicles for the number of kilometres they drive is going to be a big revenue raiser for them. I'm a bit confused by it. I think governments generally, maybe some of our governments aren't quite there, but generally are accepting of the fact that we need to do something about the environment. Electric cars.
It's all about FOMO, for the future. Fear of missing out.
Yeah, that's part of it, I think. But we accept the fact that we know we're generating too many greenhouse gases. We know we're having an impact on the planet. Electric cars aren't the solution, but they're part of the solution to the problem. And yet governments, South Australia and Victoria, you've mentioned, New South Wales have already talked about it as well, are saying that they're going to tax electric vehicles on a per kilometre rate. In fact, Victoria's put a price on it. South Australia hasn't announced their price yet. Victoria said 2.5 cents per kilometre for a purely electric vehicle, 2 cents per kilometre for a plug-in hybrid vehicle. And even that doesn't make sense. So essentially you've got cars that are more fuel efficient. Many cars you see advertised now are advertised for how fuel efficient they are. A hybrid vehicle is just a much more efficient version of a petrol engine vehicle or a similar vehicle. So they're saying we're using less fuel, so we better tax you. It's almost like saying to someone, you've given up smoking now, so you're not generating tax from those smokes you buy, so we'll tax you for having given up smoking. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of logic in it. This is the stage we should be at, Tony, where we should be encouraging people to buy electric vehicles. And countries around the world have been doing that. As I said before, we're at 0.6%. 6,000 cars were sold last year in Australia that were EVs. It's not even a drop in the ocean. It's less than a drop in the ocean. If you consider somewhere like Norway, for example, 55.9% of new car sales in Norway were electric last year. Even when you consider places like the Netherlands, Sweden, they're up around 11, 15%. So countries around the world are certainly getting there. California Gas guzzling America, California has put some clever subsidies in place. They're at 7.7%. Even Canada, my brother's in Canada at the moment, and he was speaking to me recently about this exact area and talking about electric vehicles. In Canada, one of the things that's attractive to him was the fact that you can drive in a bus lane if you drive an electric vehicle. So there's not even something they're paying you in terms of financial. They're just saying you can drive in a different lane. That might be enough for my brother to say, that's it. That'll be the thing that'll get me across the line. China last year, 4.9%, which equated to over 1 million vehicles. That's more vehicles than we sell, new vehicles than we sell in an entire year in all types of vehicles in this country. So everywhere else is getting the hang of it. In Australia, we want to tax them. So it's really a disincentive rather than an incentive to buy electric vehicles. So in answer to your initial question, I don't actually know why they're doing it. Stupidity comes to mind, but maybe that's a bit harsh, Tony.
Well, I see you're passionately in favour of electric cars. Well, so am I too. But look, if they miss out on the tax, they're going to try and recoup it, that's for sure. And as my father, who lived to 100, used to say, most of my life, as far back as I can remember, that the only thing the government won't tax is the air we breathe. And in the last 10 years of his life, he stopped saying that. So.
Yeah, give it time, Tony. We'll start being taxed on everything.
Well, we have been taxed, as a matter of fact, on the air we breathe with carbon taxes. But anyway, that's it for this morning's session of Tech Talk with Matthew Dickinson on Binjang 91.5. And now it's back to the great music and all the community information